guys, welcome to another CNPP / new media webinar event. We do these on a monthly basis, both webinars and in-person talks where we go through how we can deliver content to you guys to help your brands, your businesses understand different concepts within marketing and then business development and things of that nature. Today's session will be led by me. My name is Pierre. I am a digital marketer, a multi-creative person living in New York City. I have a slide that kind of lists all my different areas that I'm involved in, but I've been involved with new media and CNPP just through my experience in media so far the last 9 years, working within advertising, but also running my own business the last 10 years or so. We had a studio in New York City, a hip-hop dance studio called House of Movement. Fortunately, that did close due to the reasons of the pandemic, but I'm still taking my expertise within advertising, marketing, hospitality, and owning a small business to have these talks, have these discussions on my perspectives and my stories and lessons on social media and the space. So today we're going to do a social media deep dive on what it means to truly build a connection and leverage authenticity as much as possible in the social media space. So who am I? And I'll get into a little bit more of like the topic overall, but again, my name is Pierre. I've come from a 9-year media background working at some of the top agencies in the world, starting at Havas Media, Reprise. I'm currently at IPG Media Brands in a human resources function, teaching the next generation of advertisers how to navigate the space and developing on the more people-focused side of the business, but still taking all my expertise within marketing that I know and transferring that to folks, new media professionals, but then also folks like you who are joining the call to just gain a little bit more perspective and experience from someone who's been through a lot of this stuff as it relates to my own business. So you'll see here on the right side, I'm also a coach, a mentor, and I've run my own business. Some of these organizations that I've been a part of. Co-op, if you haven't heard of it, is a digital marketing apprenticeship. So for anyone here that wants to bone up their skills within digital marketing, advertising, and such, there is an apprenticeship program that is actually free to join, and it's everything is paid for once you're in it. It helps to serve under income folks who are looking to have a career in marketing. Another area and place where I do mentoring and coaching is within Apex for Youth that serves underserved Asian American and immigrant children in New York City. And then finally with HOM, House of Movement, was the dance studio I ran from 2013 to 2020. We run dance classes 5 nights a week in Manhattan and Midtown. We've run a staff of over 20 people having classes every single night. A lot of the things that I talk about here when it comes to storytelling or branding or how to build genuine connection with your audience are all things that I've applied not only to my dance studio that I used to run, but also to my brand now as someone who is paving their way as a mentor and a coach and building my own identity online in a new way. And that really correlates to a lot of the things that I'm involved in, whether it's dancing, my speaking events and opportunities such as this one, the writing that I do and the work that I'm doing to create a book one day and maybe more books, who knows. The photography that I'm involved in for the last maybe 6 years now. I'm also involved with writing. I do stand-up comedy. I've done a number of shows last year. And I'm someone who has many areas of my life that I'm involved. But what I do is try to incorporate all this into my brand and my identity as who is Robespierre. And if you're someone in the audience, we have a lot of people who I'm sure you either own a business or you're selling products, or maybe you're like me where you are the product, you are the person, the brand, the identity, the vision. And so maybe a lot of this stuff can be thought of as how I look at the way I position myself in connecting with my audience and my followers. And this is just a rundown of everything we'll go through, right? So with authenticity, connection, how that correlates to the importance of storytelling. We'll go over concepts around brand archetypes and how that is pertinent to understanding the way you want to not only communicate with your audience, but ultimately how you end up building and growing a following through understanding your way of messaging with people. And then finally, we'll go over different ways of leveraging features and the way you want to think about your content and your development on social media to really just maximize all the concepts that we'll end up talking about here. Cool. And I see, yeah, people are continuing to introduce themselves in the chat. So definitely introduce yourself, say hello, drop your Instagram, drop your brand, your website, all this stuff too, because what I'd love is to connect to everybody here, whether it be on LinkedIn or Instagram later on, just to, if you ever need a resource or a guide or someone to chat about, you know, the things in more detail from what I'll talk about here today. That's exactly what I'm here for as a speaker, as a mentor, as a coach. Those are all the things that I'm very much happy to extend my arm out to for you guys. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. Authenticity and connection. That's why we're here. I'm sure you've seen the flyer or you've followed along, and this is something that has stuck out to you. Maybe as a brand, as a business, you are having trouble just really building that genuine connection and authenticity with your audience. So I don't have, you know, I like to just use my vocal presentation to really deliver my messages across to you guys. But in the chat, I'd love for you guys to first, let's think about the word authenticity and what that means to us so we can get a baseline level of where to start off here when it comes to authenticity. So in the chat, or I don't know if we can come off mute, but if we're not, it's okay. Just use the chat here and type in a couple things that come to mind when you think of the word authenticity. Go ahead, start typing in the chat. Let's get some thoughts going. Get our brains and minds warmed up for this chat. Original, honesty, true, real life, honest. Another, again, honesty. A third for honesty. Yeah, being true to yourself. Ooh, okay, we're getting a lot of, you know, back and forth with truth and honesty. This is great. This is great. Ooh, I like this. Outside the box. That's different. I like that. Okay, cool. So I pose that question because, you know I'm coming in on here to deliver sort of my perspectives on how I've managed to build connections through authenticity and storytelling on social media. But I really love to hear from the audience too about what they really think when they hear words like that, authenticity, right? We often think, yeah, those words, being truthful, being honest, being genuine in your approach, right? When it comes to social media, it's always such a buzzword, right? Being true to yourself, being honest. People feed off of authenticity. Why is that, right? In the next slide, I'll talk more about like social media and communication. But right now, it's just really getting a baseline level for authenticity. And why is that such a motivating factor for why we follow some of the brands we do, or why do we follow certain creators online or certain brands, or why do we listen to certain TED Talks, or why do certain speakers really stand out to us, right? Because they encompass that level of authenticity in the way they express themselves, in the way they talk to people, in the way they choose to communicate. And this is interesting, right? Because with authenticity, this means being 100% true to yourself. And I mean that in both good and bad ways, right? Because as someone as people, we're constantly changing and we're adapting and we're evolving, right? So being authentic to yourself means not just showing off your good sides, but knowing what are your faults, maybe. What are the things about you that aren't maybe so great, right? And not to say that those are the things you're going to be talking about when you create content or when you're out there on social media, but they're identifiers for you to help you understand, okay, I'm being authentic in the way I'm talking to someone or approaching it, but am I being 100% genuine about those things? Or do you realize, like, let's say you don't maybe necessarily care to connect with an audience or people in your following, right? That's something to be aware of, right? Because then that's sort of almost like the first thing to work on is, do you even want to build a connection with your audience? Do you even want to be someone that that shares stories, that connects with other people, right? So that's part of being authentic, is just knowing yourself so well that you're able to understand sort of where you need to even like fit in or change or mold or help understand that you can develop true connectivity with people, right? I often think about when it comes to building relationships, right? Think about your friends, think about the people that are closest to you. There's a reason why these are your best friends, your close friends, right? Like maybe you've had experiences with them in the past, you've gone through things together. But more than likely, it's because you've been able to share parts of your lives with each other through expressing, right? That level of expression often goes deep. And you think about relationships that maybe are more surface level, which no judgment here, like that's definitely something that is common in our world. But you think about the connections that are truly meaningful in your life, whether that's your friends, your family, or significant other, and you think about what makes that connection so profound, so much deeper than maybe other relationships that you may have. And it goes back to that authenticity, right? You've probably shared things about your life with certain people, shared stories that led to new experiences, new memories, and all those things collectively are reasons why you feel a deep sense of connection to another person, right? So then coming back to the reason why we're here today is that you want to think of your brand, your business, your identity online as such. Think about it as a one-to-one connection with whoever it is that is out there, right? You know, I don't know about everyone here right now. I don't know where everyone stands with follower counts or growth or the way they're projecting themselves online, but it's very much like that, right? It is the way we portray ourselves online, in my philosophy, is how you should be in real life, right? And I know that that's like maybe a bit obvious, like, okay, duh, like, but I think it's important that we are here in a space that allows for just us remembering things that ground us and allowing for space for us to just remember to realize these things, right? Me, myself, like Pierre, if anyone here has met me in person, I know Patricia from New Media has many times, and the team over there, like I am very much this person, whether I'm on social media, whether I'm writing a blog post or chatting to people online, or talking to you guys here in person, right? So it's really, I think authenticity, especially in the digital age, is making sure that we're really bridging that gap of who we are in real life to who we are digitally. And if there's things about you that you need to sort of work on to become the next better version of yourself, or to feel like you can deepen and grow connections with people online, that's something that you work on, not just digitally, but also within yourself. So knowing thyself so well. And that leads to even more genuine authenticity and connection for whatever it is you're trying to portray and tell online. Think another example is just within dating, right? It's like we're always constantly on the search for, I mean, I am, at least I'm always on the constant search for love. But you know, when we think about dating too, you think about the people that you end up building an actual relationship with and actually pursuing some sort of connection with, right? Why are you so attracted to them in the first place? Obviously, physical things come to mind, right? But when you look past the surface, when you look past all that, it's just about how honest can you tell how a person is, how genuine can they be, right? All those things are very much factors that we adore and want from another person. And not to make this a dating webinar or a talk, but think about that for your brand, right? When people end up following you, or people are interested in you or your brand or your stories, it's about seeing just some sort of genuinicity. Genuinity, is that the word? Some sort of authenticity in who you are, who you're portraying every single time that you're online, or whether that's through, and I'll talk about later about different features, like how to navigate direct messages, how to navigate places like comments and engagements, right? And yeah, so that's really where I wanted to start here with the foundation of authenticity and connection, is just really taking a very holistic approach to this. You know, this isn't a web, and my talks aren't the kinds of talks or webinars where it's this sort of formula, right? Like gain 1,000 followers today, or make 100K in revenue by the end of the year, right? Like, yes, those are all things we maybe want with our businesses or whichever brands you're a part of or growing. But at the end of the day, I always take my approach very holistically in understanding just the why behind everything. And because this is a social media deep dive on connection authenticity, it's important we take a moment here to just stop, just go back to the basics, like what is it about authenticity and connection, right? So as we continue the rest of the presentation, really think about that for yourselves, right? It's like, how much of you in person are you transcribing to a digital world? Right. I think when people see and I'll go over examples of my own portrayal of myself online, which comes with just knowing yourself so well because you want to be able to display that online. And then to me in real life, I would say most people would say not 9 out of 10 times, I am pretty much who you expect me to be, right? And that's even harder if you have maybe, well, it's harder to just know thyself in person, like Socrates said, right? The great philosopher, know thyself, right? It's such a profound, simple message, but it speaks so many volumes to the challenges we have in our own life. But then with a brand, right? You're building a persona, you are building an identity with a brand or a business, right? And there's going to be a story behind that. There's going to be some kind of mission that people want to connect with. And we're going to go over examples here of big brands, smaller businesses, and myself for how that level of authenticity and branding comes across. And then just taking a quick step back, or also of remembering like what is social media in the first place, right? Like we've been socializing for thousands and thousands of years. Since the dawn of communication, we have been taking it upon ourselves as humans to relay things back and forth to one another and express. And again, I know it's one of those things like, duh, of course, Pierre, like we've been doing this for so long, but really take a step back and realize what social media is. Like social media is the next level of that expression and communication for what we've been trying to accomplish for thousands of years. It's just on a very amplified, very deliberate technological level of proportions that we'll never be able to fully comprehend. But I think if we break it down to the basics, think about social media as just that. It is a social space, right? It's weird to think about in the beginning because, okay, yeah, obviously social media has been around for as long as maybe some of you can remember. But if you're like me, who's in my 30s, there was a time before the internet and a time before social media where it's weird to think that there was, but there really was a time where you had to socialize in person, right? So fast forward to the year 2023, we're just doing that now. In any time, anywhere, any part of the world, you can now socialize with people. You can date whoever you want around the world. You can meet and interact with whoever at any given time. So I like to think of social media as not just this interconnected web of different applications like your TikToks or Snapchats or Instagrams, but think about social media as this entire big town square. Just imagine like this big open area where we're all just wandering around the internet, saying hello to each other constantly, where we have ideas and we're like, hey, come check out this thing, or hey, that's cool, like comment here, or like this, or this and that, right? But that's like obvious, but really, really try to just remember that that's what it is. So treat it that way. Treat it as a place where you are saying hi to real people out there, like user XYZ, whatever handle name. At the end of that, there's a person behind them. There's a person here talking to you today behind this computer screen. And I can't see your faces. I don't know if people are falling asleep already. I don't know if people are laughing at anything I'm saying, but all I know is that I can't see the number of people here. There are up to 10 plus people here listening to me right now. So just remember that. I think it's hard. It's easy to forget, or rather it's easy to forget that there are living, breathing minds and hearts and emotions behind the computer screen, right? So that's important to me, at least when I connect with anybody. It's not just seeing their name or the person, or I'm chatting to someone else. Yeah, I mean, we got to definitely be worried about the bots and AI more and more as technology progresses. But take it for that right now is behind usernames, behind handles, there are genuine people there that want to connect with you, that deserve actual connection from you if you choose to be someone that wants to build a brand truly, it wants to build an identity online. I don't treat DMs or messages or comments lightly. That's someone taking their time and effort to connect with me. A follow from someone means the world for me. Like, I don't care if you have 10 followers or you have like 3 million people following your story or your brand or your identity. The fact that someone out there even cares is a testament to just how amazing technology can be, that they can find you and you can relay your story back out to the world. And when it comes to, oh man, I don't have my phone's charging over there, but do you guys remember this thing, like the BlackBerry? But this thing here what is it? It's a phone, right? We call, we text on it, right? But when you really think about it, and this is what I think about with social media, that this thing is truly a microphone. It's a microphone to all 8 billion other people in the world. And when you realize is people are more than just text and bubbles and videos and images online, but they're real humans and people out there trying to connect with you, I think you might look at authenticity and connection a little bit differently than maybe you did before. And if you're, and maybe that already sticks to you and that's resounding already, then great. And I hope you just continue, because I think we just need more of that in this world, especially as social media gets crazier by the day, especially as it continues to grow. My philosophy and my talks and my coaching has always been to just be genuine to people, be authentic. And if your authenticity means that you're maybe not such a great person and you're just being real with yourself, think about how that sort of is an approach to people too. Maybe that will shift your mindset and how you want to communicate with people differently, because it is just that. Social media is you communicating to people all the time. It doesn't matter if it is online, right? We're doing it online in hopefully safer ways, but you're still communicating to another person that would be in years prior would have just been right in front of you. So what's the difference, right? I think we need to sort of shatter this mirror of technology that puts us behind screens and realize that we're really trying to do something that is the most humanistic thing possible, and that's build connection and build authenticity, but we're doing it online. So take a deep breath, let that all soak in. I know I just speak a lot. I do talk a lot, obviously, but I think it's so crucial to just remembering those very basic things about it before you go into like sort of the nitty-gritty of like developing content around that. Because once you understand these concepts more, it becomes sort of like embedded in your system, right? It's in the back of your mind when you create content, when you write things, when you engage with people. You just start to remember that this is social media. This is just an amplified version of how it's always been done. Just needing us as people, as knowing ourselves, to just adapt to whatever the new thing is. And that will continue to change and grow. And then 5, 10, 20 years from now, who knows how we'll be communicating. And I'm not going to be talking anymore. I'm going to be the one listening in on the webinar and listen to some younger person speaking about how it is different now. Okay, so in the next half hour, I want to talk about 2 very critical concepts that I talk about in my webinars, in my talks, for helping you establish growth, but also helping you establish, in this case, that connection and connectivity and authenticity with your audience, right? And the first one is going to be storytelling, which is the vivid description of ideas, beliefs, personal experiences, and life lessons through stories or narratives that invoke power, emotions, and insights, right? And so take a second there and think about storytelling in your own brand, in your own identity, right? How much of the content or the things that you post online tell a true, authentic story of who you are, like actually, right? It's like, are you just posting kind of your product online and expecting people to sort of just maybe understand it from the get-go? I mean, maybe if you're a brand like Nike that's already built a following over the last 30 years, or you're Apple, that we all understand the story of Steve Jobs by now. But if you're a smaller business, which you might be and probably are, like me, building their brand, their identity, it all starts with the base, the foundation of what is your story. When I think about storytelling and I think about invoking emotions and insights and descriptions, I think about my favorite movie of all time. And don't at me here, because I will fight you to describe this as the best movie of all time. But Forrest Gump, 90% of this movie is him just telling stories to people on that very bench in the poster. If you haven't seen it in a while, it's literally just him telling stories to people. But it's the way he tells the stories. It's the way he invokes the emotions, the details, the little things in between, the context for why he felt a certain type of way at any moment is why you felt so encaptured by a story in a movie like that, even if it is fictional, right? So think about that for your own life, for your own story, for your own brand, where how can I talk and tell my story in a way that brings meaning to whoever is listening, whatever that may be, right? Why you started your business. Why should I care about this product and how it's helped maybe you? How did this brand or image of who you are? For me, I'm a coach now and a mentor. And I tell my story through the lens of, this is me helping my past self through the things that I wish I could have had when I was this age, the young professionals that I help now, the kids that I mentor and tutor, right? So that's part of my story, right? And people hear that, they're like, okay, that makes a lot of sense to why you do what you do, or that makes a lot of sense to why you have XYZ brand, right? Okay, because there's some sort of like link there. There's a link, and you're not just some sort of robot that's like going about this thing, right? And maybe the wrong way. right? So that ties back to your authenticity and why people want to connect with you in the first place, because they believe in something that you were portraying. They're believing in your story. They see something just beyond photos and maybe videos or like product images or what have you, in whatever it is you're trying to tell online. Because that's why storytelling is so important. Every single day you're telling your story, whether you realize that or not. Many of you own businesses, right? You're probably talking about your businesses with your friends constantly. You're probably introducing yourself to other business owners or programs or organizations that you need help from or want to collaborate with, right? And in those moments, in those brief 30 seconds to a minute that you're introducing yourself, it's so critical to just know your story so well. Articulate that to people. You know, if any day one of you comes on a webinar or a phone call and speaks to a crowd of people, you want to be able to genuinely like express who you are in a way that people can feel like they want to listen or connect to, right? Again, I can't see who's dozing off here in the audience, but hopefully you guys are still tagging along and listening. But that's just it, right? And I think about storytelling and why that is so critical, and why I bring this up in every single one of my talks, not just for the sake of talking about storytelling, but it always connects in some way to either expression, to connectivity, to growth, to why people want to follow you or your brand or give, let's be honest, give a damn about you in the first place, right? So it's about those very basic concepts. Again, that's what my talks really involve. Here are some ways that I've managed to develop my storytelling over the years. And some of these exercises I really encourage you guys to take on for yourselves when it comes to asking yourself, like, if you are someone that, you know, is asking yourself, why is storytelling so important in the first place, right? I just sort of gave you my perspective on it, my take on it. Feel free to do your own research on it too. But 9 out of 10 times you'll see people talk about social media online, and it's always going to come back to these really commonalities around, you know, telling your story, telling about your brand, your identity. And if you're someone who has a hard time has a hard time telling your story online, this is exactly the types of things that I have done in my own personal life. And I see a question here: tips for creating short story enough to maintain. I have heard. Yes, I'm going to talk about that because I've actually been working on that for my brand in a few slides. So I'm gonna get to that. Thank you, Lisa Houseworth, for that question. I'm gonna talk about that, like how to keep it concise and short and to the point, especially in this day and age where attention spans are next to nothing these days. But so just continuing on, you know, these are many ways that I've come across, or rather concepts that have come across my desk to help me flesh out my story, my identity, my brand, my image, who I am, so that I can be able to tell people exactly why they should follow along my journey. And it's asking yourself tough questions, like, what are your values? What do you believe in? What do you stand for? Why do you get up every day? What makes you tick? What is it about your brand or your image that ties so strongly and profoundly to who you are as a person? And you got to know that. You got to know that like the back of your hand. You got to know that deep inside your soul, even, you know, like as existential as that may sound. You got to know that so true to who you are. And that takes time, right? That takes time to know what your values are, because you haven't maybe done enough things to even test those values. You haven't done enough things to know what is a value that you even care about or not care about, right? So ask yourself those tough questions. If you don't know, you know, values, you know, there's so many great resources out there about, you know, do you value money? Do you value inspiration? Do you value growth? Do you value friends or relationships or connection? And all these things are questions you got to ask yourself to really flesh out what goes on in the inner workings of your mind, so that you can fully articulate who you are, right? Where you're from, your circumstances, right? Like, what is your background? What's your upbringing? What are the challenges? What are the ups and the downs of your life that have helped you get to this very point in this exact moment in time, right? Where you're from is a big bullet point to identifying who you are in your story, your circumstances, right? All of that is so critical, right? And people want to know that. People want to hear that. People want to feel a sense of belonging to your story and feel some sort of relatability. And if you feel like, oh man, oh, here's another thing. If you are someone that used to be like me, that thought, oh my God, who the F would care about my story? I'm just a Filipino American kid from Queens, New York. And I felt like that was it. That was kind of like the end of my story. But no, you know, it takes time. It takes time to really figure out, you know, through the ups and downs and the challenges, like what all of this really means to you. And I did that through journaling, through writing, you know, writing your things down, writing your thoughts down, really getting a good sense of just who you are. And I've been able to articulate my message that way, right? Through other formats, right? Like whether you're a dancer, a singer, you draw, you write, you paint, like do all these things, express through just random and in different formats so that you can just sort of start developing a sense again of who you are. And that at the end of the day is going to be how you tell your story. And there are a few more slides I want to continue to get to and then have time for questions. So, if a lot of this stuff is really interesting to you and it's something that you haven't yet thought of as a content creator or like a business owner, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. My contacts will be at the end of the presentation for you to like do a deep dive with me. Let's figure this out together, right? This is what I do in my coaching is I help my clients and I help my students understand their values. I help them flesh out the inner workings of who they are, really. And I think because that's so monumental to how we communicate and build growth and build authenticity on social media. Because at the end of the day, the context of your life, the ups, the downs, the wins, the losses, everything, like every random job you've ever done, every relationship you've ever been through, every sort of random thing you think doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, that is all just content. That is all potential things that in your story that you want to deliver. And I'll make one point here. Let's say you're someone in the audience thinking like, oh, well, I don't want to tell everyone about my life. I live a very private life. I enjoy like my own space, my own thing, but I do have this business that I want to grow. So how do I sort of bridge that gap of what am I able to tell my story of? And then also what am I allowed to really share in privacy? Great question, because this is something I continue to struggle with today, because it's true. We often are so capable of sharing everything, even oversharing just the little details about your life, right? So it's about going back. It's about writing what is clear, what is concise, what are the worthwhile things in your story, in your context, to deliver the right amount of concise, clear content to tell that story, right? And it kind of leads a little bit into Lisa's question here about like what sort of formats work the best when it comes to telling stories, right? But you got to think about it. You can't share everything because then it's almost like nothing will make sense. But if you go about telling your story to develop the authenticity and storytelling through thinking about what is going to be clear, concise in your content, that is going to be what carries you and your brand, right? Like the way I portray myself online is how I am, but I don't tell everything about my life. I don't talk about my relationships online with people. I don't talk about the nitty gritty of my day-to-day, so to speak. There are people that talk about the day in the life, but even those videos, those vlog videos, those are just snapshots of their day. You can't fully know, or you can't assume that this is everything that they've been feeling or knowing throughout a given day, right? So it's still up to you to control that privacy for yourself and bridging that gap of what is going to be the most meaningful. What is your message that you want to relay to 8 billion people out there in the world? And think about that too. If you had a microphone to 8 billion people right here, right now, speaking into the microphone, what would you say? What would you say? You might not even know what you'd say. How crazy is that, right? But that's what social media is. Every single day, we're relaying our message, and it's up to the algorithm, the universe, whatever you believe in, to find that message that you're trying to relay and find it to the people that's going to matter to the most. So think about that next time you post on social media, that you're not just posting on social media, you're talking to the world. You just are, you are. Okay, next big concept, now that we've talked about storytelling, we've identified just really baseline, what is connection, what is authenticity, we're going to talk about brand archetypes. And this is something I've learned fairly recently. And if you're familiar with things like MBTIs or personality type quizzes or love languages, this is another type of quiz you guys can take. And not really quiz, but there are probably quizzes online, but really I think it's just taking a moment to Google this and looking for the circle or the list of the different types of brand archetypes. And what they really are just ways of labeling the way now that you know your story, right? Let's say you've done the hard part. You now know who you are so well, and you now know how you're authentically delivering your message. Now, to develop content that is the most relevant to the audience, it's going to make the most sense to you. You got to talk about and you got to know what your brand archetype is. And that is just knowing the way that you're creating content, the way that you're delivering your message to what speaks to you and your soul the most, your mind, your heart, right? This is a long list. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm going to talk about some of them that stand out for me. The one that I relate to the most is the hero It's on a mission to make the world a better place. The hero is courageous, bold, and inspirational. You think of brands like Nike, BMW, Duracell, I guess Duracell. Oh yeah, Duracell's like keep moving, right? But inspirational, right? That is how I look at my life, right? Because there are just so many things that I've learned in my life that I feel if someone could just hear these stories, if someone could just sort of build their perspective on top of mine, it would prevent them from going through a lot of the heartbreak I've been through, a lot of the downs I've been through, a lot of the dark days I've been through. And that's part of my journey. That's part of why I tell my stories the way I do. Like chasing your dreams or being motivational in the sense of like, today's the day there is no waiting for anything, right? It's like, you got to take it upon yourself to pick yourself up and all this type of message. If you follow me on Instagram later, you follow me on Threads, that's the type of mindset I talk about, that growth, inspirational mindset. So think about that for yourselves, Google this later, do some exercises where you're going through each one and you're really questioning each one. Like, am I a creator? Am I someone that, has this intuitive, inventive, imaginative mindset that speaks to creating things? Is that sort of my thing? Maybe you're a chef and that is part of your brand archetype, right? Because you're constantly creating things. Are you somewhat of who's the other one that I like a lot too? The gesture, right? Are you someone that brings laughter and humor to people in your story? Just identify that. I think it's maybe you kind of know already. Maybe you're like, duh, okay, I'm definitely like, a motivational type person, but really take the time to write that down in terms of your brand, your image, your product. Maybe it's like you yourself, or it's, a brand that you've developed with a team. Think about that and come to a collective understanding of what exactly is your brand archetype. So for sure, and just like the blueprint now of how to develop content. Okay, let's see, 15 minutes. I do want to go over some examples of brands. Maybe I won't show videos for each one, but we think about Nike, right? They are the hero archetype. They are so inspirational. They are a very motivating company. That's been the crux of their products since, the 70s, right? And, the last time I had a talk, I played one of the videos where we just follow a girl running around, talking about her story of how she enjoys running, right? But, this may not be a great example for us as small business owners, but I do think it's a testament to how much you can grow when your message is so well grounded in what you stand for that you don't. Their messaging hasn't really shifted all too much in the last 70 years. There have always been a company that strived on just doing it, just being motivational, right? And clearly people resonate with that. And a lot of brands since then have followed that same suit and figure out, okay, like we are that inspirational brand, but we've added whatever it is behind our story that makes us special or different or a little bit different than like the Nikes of the world, right? So you think about that when we look at like the big brands and you think about just like if what your brand stands for and how to develop content around that. And their content, it speaks to that, it's consistent. It consistently talks about that inspirational, motivational ideals that they offer, right, as a brand. So people continue to follow, they think of inspiration, they think of brands like Nike. This is another brand I love calling out. This is my cousin's bakery from Cora. They're a donut pastry business in New York City. And she's built her business like on the grounds of taking our grandmother's recipes to heart and creating pastries and creations around that. So she very much falls into the creative brand archetype where she's taking concepts and flipping them, right? Being intuitive, being imaginative, changing the way you want to think of something. As simple as like a donut. You think about something as simple as a donut that's been around for so long, but you're flipping the script on it. And that's what people like love about her brand. People follow her, even though her products are only available in New York City, people are following her from all over the world because they see something as familiar as a donut, but and maybe as familiar as a culture like Filipino cuisine or Filipino culture, right? But it's this imaginative, inventive infusion of so many things that people just think, wow, like that's so different. That's their story. That's her story. That's their grandmother's story, right? And so that is what, people resonate. People want to come back time and time again. Obviously, she has great production of her work, right? She's managed to find a team that is delivering her story, her message in high quality type ways. And that's one way you can do it. But then you look back at Nike, half these videos are from your iPhone, like people just capturing user generated content on their phone. And then a combination of that mostly But then you go to another maybe smaller business that needs to maybe focus on higher quality content, if that's what you want to do. So I would say if you're anyone in the audience, like, oh, you know, do I need to have like the highest quality? No, you just need to be able to tell your story so well and know that. Okay, now let's go to mine, because not to plug myself, but I think I'm getting sort of a better handle of oops, let me see, you know, my storytelling so far, and I'm getting better at it. And now I'm on this sort of new journey where I'm planning my dreams of moving to Paris next year, and how that ties into chasing your dreams, you know, writing your own story, how that is so critical to your growth as a person, right? So I just want to quickly show like the latest video I have, which has gotten definitely a good amount of engagement, and see what you guys think of this. My name is Pierre, and this is The Road to Paris, where I'll be documenting my big plans to move to Paris next year. I'm a big believer that chasing your dreams means writing down your story and connecting all the little dots in between. So stay tuned right here, follow along for more, and a bientôt. Okay, quick, right? That was 20 seconds, not even, right? I stitched that together on a little app like InShot, and then I wrote my script out. Took about, you know, 5 lines to write that. And then going back again to Lisa's question, because it's really important to think about that in when you are telling your story. You want to be as clear and concise, and think about creating content that it's tough, but you want to create content by putting yourself outside of your own box for a second, looking critically at your own content in terms of both the quality and the content behind it, and asking yourself, would I like my own content? Would I follow myself? Would I want to come back and follow this page for more? Like, actually. And I had to, that was probably my 4th draft of that. And I had to think about my tone. I had to think about my message. I had to think about, okay, yeah, I'm planning in Paris, but why? Why is that a critical part to my story, my brand? Because I'm connecting that to the fact that I'm someone that wants to inspire, someone that wants to talk about chasing their dreams and learning all the things along the way, right? So I'm connecting all those dots in a way that I had to write that. I'm not just going to freestyle this, because if I freestyle, I'm just going to talk the way I do now. I just sort of talk on and on about my subjects and topics. But in that, I consolidated that into a 15-second video that garnered a good amount of engagement. You know, I don't have a ton of followers, but, you know, I was able to spark some conversations in my comments and garner enough likes to know that, okay, I'm onto something here, right? This is definitely a piece that I feel could carry me in terms of like more growth mindset, more inspirational things I want to share with the world. And that leads to more of coaching opportunities, more speaking opportunities, more, maybe you want to connect to me as a creator, as a creative person, whether it's through dancing or photography or writing, right? So I think about all that because that's my brand and that's my identity. So go back, reevaluate the content you have online, even if it's using just the back-end data analytics to quickly see like, okay, what just simply made a little bit of a difference from all the content that I've been posting lately versus like some ones that are like bust. Like, not all my shit is like not great. Like this one got a lot of likes, but no one commented on it, right? It just seemed like maybe it was a cute video, right? Some of the stuff like doesn't hit as much, right? So you got to evaluate yourself. You got to be critical about the stuff you're putting online, and you got to be putting like an actual effort into it. And this could have been definitely better. You know, I could have maybe took more, I don't know. There are definitely things that could be better about it, but for you, what the tip really here is when it comes to looking at your your own brand is thinking about, oh my goodness, thinking about your brand, your message, and what things you need to do to make sure that what you're putting online is clear, concise with the content, right? Okay, so with 9 minutes left, I want to leave time for questions, but this is just a quick list of all the different types of formats that I really encourage you guys to test out, right? I think we get really stuck as maybe creative people, or if you're a perfectionist like me in some ways, where we are afraid to post things online because we want it to be just like spot on all the time, right? But if I've learned anything about social media, especially in the last few years with places like Reels and TikTok, is that they reward you for trying. They reward you for going outside your comfort zone, trying new formats, doing different things, testing different ways you're creating your content to tell your story. And when you notice that something changes, that's when you take a pause, you take note, and you take stock of what about this exactly is working. And right, so when you have this foundational level of, okay, this is the content that's working. Am I hitting the boxes? Am I speaking true to my brand archetype? Am I telling my story? Am I being authentic in my approach in the way I'm connecting? Right? Because if you're hitting all those concepts that I'm talking about here today, you'll start to notice, okay, people are coming back. Oh, okay, my follower counts are going up. Oh, people are actually subscribing to a newsletter, or people are subscribing to taking my class. You know, you want to take stock, right? So it's not just putting your stuff out there, your content, but trying different things each time to see what's going to stick. Is it going to be images that people want to hear from you? Is it going to be the writing that you do on that? Are you just someone that rather just grow their brand or their business on podcasts? Are you more of a writer or blogger on Substack? You know, test all these things out. Don't be afraid to try it. At worst, you wasted one piece of content. At most, you don't know what's going to be the next thing that you're going to hit on, right? Like, and social media is changing every single day. I've had more engagement on Threads, the new social media app, than I've had on Twitter the last 10 years. Why? Because something about my audience and my algorithm there is already speaking to the audience that I've been trying to reach on Twitter this whole time. So you just never know. Take a stab, take a shot at it. The worst you got is you just learn that what doesn't work. And that's a good thing too. Okay, so these are just a sort of a deeper level of ways you want to make sure you're staying authentic and true to who you are when it comes to connecting with people, right? Your stories, I look at your stories as like your everyday sort of things you want to sort of splash to people, right? You want to always think of your content in a concept of like, what is going to be generating people to come to me? What is going to be nurturing them to keep following and keep staying in tune? And then ultimately, like, it's a conversion, the lead conversion of, okay, now people have seen enough of, you know, understanding what the value is, what you bring to the table, and now they ultimately buy your product or sign up for your speaking event or come to your class, right? So you got to figure out what that KPI is and make content around that. So your stories are like every day, sort of like top of mind, staying sort of like in the know about the latest about your brand, right? Direct messages is a great way. Sometimes you'll get questions from random people. Sometimes, obviously, proceed with DMs in the safest way, but think about DMs literally as actual real conversations with an actual human in front of you, not just like this person behind a keyboard, right? Think about it. How would you talk to this person? Would you be excited to talk to them? Do you not have the energy to talk to people right now on DMs? That's all great too. Don't force anything. Be genuine about it. Like, if you don't want to talk to this person right now, then you can always come back to it later. You know, never try to force conversations with people. I always find that to be authentic, to be real, to be genuine, to be more natural with your connection with people is just to treat it as if they're really there in front of you. I've never once talked in a conversation where if I didn't have the energy to get back to it right now, then do you, then come back to it later. Or sometimes I use voice notes because I think that comes across more authentically of what I'm trying to portray if a text is not enough. So your DMs are a great place to just continue to build that one-on-one connection with your audience, no matter who it is. And treat it like that. Treat it like they're actually in front of you. And I just wonder how much of your approach to speaking with people might change online. Broadcast channels. This is a sort of new feature. I don't know if this is available for everyone just yet, but I know it's definitely rolling out to business profiles like myself. And this is just kind of like think of it as like a newsletter where you can share sort of behind the scenes things about your life, updates that you maybe wouldn't share publicly, to like stories, more like behind the scenes type content. So that's another way you can sort of build further connection with an audience of people that actually want to subscribe to you as like a deeper level of your story, right? And that's available in your profile. You'll see like a new option for broadcast channels. If you have questions about this, feel free to message me on LinkedIn or Instagram, and I'll walk you through it. And I can even show you mine and how I use it too. Finally, questions and comments and engagement, similar to DMs, right? If you have people like online wanting to talk to, like, it doesn't have to be this whole thing where you have a conversation with every single person, but, you know, just like a thanks for the follow and encouragement goes a long way with your followers. Like, they actually show that you care about the fact that they care about you, right? It's just like any other relationship, right? Treat it that way. Treat it as such. That's always been the way I've been able to. Maybe I don't have the most followers, but the people that do follow me, the people I do engage with, that's always led to just really interesting new opportunities and help motivate me to continue telling my story for the things that drive people in my branding and my messaging around inspiration, right? Because I just continue to gather more and more of what people are really interested about. Okay, with all that, yeah, that's just the summary of it. Everything we've talked through today, like take some moment today to just think about the concepts, right? The authenticity, the storytelling, your Google brand archetypes. If you have questions around formats or things to try, or maybe you just want to run some content by me or your brand by me, please, again, find me. You can scan the QR code to connect with me later on. I'm going to sift through the posts from earlier and see if I can find as many of you on Instagram as I possibly can before the meeting's over. But with that, I'd love to open up the floor for questions. I don't know if we can unmic ourselves, but feel free to type them in the chat. I know we have like just a few more minutes, but thank you guys for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions right now.
Hi guys, if you'd like to speak on the mic, just raise your hand and then I will allow you to speak. Thank you.
Oops, I'm just trying to find some of your guys' Instagram so I can follow along later. But also, yeah, just find me on LinkedIn too if you guys ever have any questions at all. Definitely happy to. Is there questions? Thank you. That was helpful. I'm new on social media, have success on Facebook, Instagram.
Robespierre, someone raised their hand, so I'm gonna allow her to talk. Her name is
Cool.
Sheila.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me, you guys?
Yes. Hi, Sheila.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great.
Thank you for all this. I tried to get on my computer with this, but it wouldn't let me. So I'm like, let me just use my phone.
Yeah.
But my question is, there are people that are making money from YouTube. How do you do that?
Yeah.
What
Well,
you can do?
yeah. So it's kind of similar to Instagram and the rest of the platforms where there's monetization involved based on your content. So it first starts off with just the algorithm needing to even know if your content is garnering enough in views or impressions to allow to put ads in between your videos. The only way to do that is if you garner enough impressions and views to warrant that, to allow for your video to be monetized, basically. That's one way to do it. Obviously, once you go further into the content sphere, there's influencer marketing, affiliate marketing, where you're now working with brands in your own videos. But before you worry about making money with content on YouTube, it's still about the concepts I talked about here, which are getting your foundations for telling your story, knowing how your brand archetype speaks to your messaging, and then to continue to still develop and test content around that. And you'll start to see, like, once you start to garner the views, the impressions, the engagement on places like YouTube, it works very similar to the other platforms where now the algorithm will see you as an opportunity to monetize on your content.
Okay. Now I'm just curious. How do people do this?
Yeah. It starts with the content. It's got to be fire content. It's got to be content that people want. Otherwise, think about it. If you're a brand or business like YouTube, and they feed on content that's going to be effective and efficient and interesting, it starts there. That's
Okay.
really where it starts. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you for the question.
There's
Awesome.
another person who raised his hand, DeAndre. So let me just allow him to speak.
Hello, DeAndre.
Okay, maybe not.
Oh yeah, if you
Yeah.
have a question.
Maybe he doesn't know how to unmute himself.
Hello?
Yes, hello.
There we go.
Yes. Hi. Thank you for taking my call. I'm sorry, I couldn't get my mute to unmute.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, how is it to attract more followers other than just by content, like and hiring others to help bring in more content? Like, what is it that helped you tipped over over that tipping point?
Yeah.
I guess that's what that's what I'm wondering. Like, what was it that tipped you over the tipping point without any help of others?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, DeAndre, for your question. Your question was around, how have you managed to go over, I guess, like that new mindset of developing content or followers without any sort of help from maybe outside sources, is what I'm hearing. And
Yeah.
actually, I'll talk about my brand and my personal experience. I don't have any team members helping me. I'm doing all my content and creation on my own. And it again goes back to the understanding of just looking at your content, right? Look at your content and think about, would you follow your own content? The way to like know this for sure too is think about who do you really like out there? Who really inspires you? What sort of brands or content or brands or influencers or content creators do you follow that you literally are like, I like this. There's a reason you like this, right? Because it speaks to you, it resonates to you, right? So you want to take that same approach for your own content, your own messaging, your own brand, and apply that to yourself. And it's hard, right? It's hard to be really critical about the stuff that you post, right? Because it's you. It's almost like this ego effect of like needing to sort of like quiet that a little bit and just think about yourself from like a third party awareness sort of level where would I follow myself? Would I actually enjoy the shit that I'm putting out, right? And am I bringing value when I see myself on the screen? If I'm looking at myself as a third party in my own content, would I be jazzed? Would I be excited to follow for more? And I think when we put that critical lens on ourselves, it only helps us. I know it's like weird, and it's definitely weird for me when I first had to like, I guess, judge my own self. But that's the power of, first knowing yourself so well so that you know even what to talk about. And then looking at other content and why do you resonate with that so well, nitpick it apart. Was it the quality of the video? Was it the transitions of the video? Was it the music involved? Was it what they spoke about? And all of that, and apply that to yourself too. It's almost like duh, but it's so hard when you maybe are by yourself and you don't have a team. But let's say you are lucky enough to have a team. Tell them this is the stuff that I want to replicate, not replicate this, but I want to take some of the notes that they are having from content that really speaks to me. And I need to apply that to the stuff that I'm doing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's tough, but just be critical on yourself. And it's almost like it's almost like you pushing yourself,
What kind of platforms do you use for editing?
Yeah, I love CapCut. It's free. It's so easy to edit on. There's even music for like free licensing. So CapCut's a great one. InShot's another great one. I think InShot might be paid though, but I know there's a free version that allows for like just some kind of editing on it. CapCut though is like the number one for sure. It's all over TikTok. You can do cool like captioning on it. You can do cool. And I know like maybe you're like me, like I'm not a video editor, but I am a photographer, so I have kind of an eye for things, but I'm not a video editor by any means. And so editing to me was just kind of like really cumbersome in the beginning. But just like anything, it's a skill. Especially a skill nowadays, especially for anything marketing related. So take it upon yourself to learn these skills, like be easy on yourself too, and learn slowly. And places like CapCut do make it easy. I think they have tutorials too on like how to use things, but again, go to like the videos that you really like, and especially if you like a simple format. Like I like a simple format, so I find videos that do really well, but then sort of replicate that sort of editing style. Like if you saw the video I showed you guys earlier, it was really simple. It was just me, cuts of me doing like the things that I love to do, like dancing or photography or what have you, right? So yeah, video capturing and editing definitely is a skill set that I think most of us need if we're gonna promote ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
No problem. Cool. Well, thank you guys again. I think there is a recording. I saw some questions around that, so we'll follow up with that. If you guys do need help with branding or your businesses or have questions, CNPP is a great place for resources for small businesses. New media, they do marketing, advertising for hospitality groups in all over the country. So, you know, and you have me too. So find me on Instagram, find me on LinkedIn. Let's connect. Let's talk. Let's figure out how we can help each other. So.
Can I ask you a personal question? Do je parlez-vous français?
Oh,
speak
je parle français. Yeah, I'm learning.
Okay.
I'm on. Oh, you speak French? Yeah, I'm learning French
A
right now.
little bit. I did in high
Yeah,
school. I don't remember a whole lot. Little tiny
Oh, that's
bit.
so great. That's so great. I knew what you even said. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm learning French a little bit right now on Duolingo. So,
That's wonderful.
and I'm moving there next year, so I'm just getting a head start.
That's wonderful.
Merci. Merci. Okay, well, merci Sheila. Au revoir. Au revoir to you and to everyone. Thank you, Patricia, New Media, again for having me. And yeah, we'll see you guys for the next talks. So stay tuned. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you,
Good
everyone.
day. Au revoir.